Okay, let's get right to the point of this video. This is going to be a video outlining essentially what's coming up in 2024, especially which is, in my opinion, this crucial year when it comes to what's going to happen with Social Security. The agency, the benefits, you, the beneficiaries, those applying who are the applicants. It's an election year where we're going to be seeing a new potential president. As you guys know, those election years can be unique in what happens. Like nobody really guessed what would happen has actually happened. So here we are wondering what's going to be an amazing thing that will happen or a negative thing in 2024 and how will it affect the Social Security benefits. Let's get right to it real quick. So here's the deal. As you know, the SSA is in a state of crisis going into 2024. Before we begin the video, remember, if you enjoy these videos, remember to use that like finger and the subscribe palm and then the little all button finger. There you go. So let's get right to it. All right, here's the issues with the staff shortages and customer service shortfalls going into 2024 for the Social Security Administration, and ultimately how it will affect Social Security disability benefits, supplemental security income, and retirement benefits. Let's get to it. So right off going into 2024, the staff at the SSA has low morale. Not a good thing because you want them to be all pepped up, almost caffeinated to be able to go ahead and interact with all the beneficiaries. Number two, the staff has maximum caseload capacity per employee for many of the positions that they have there because they don't have enough staff to go ahead and spread the love of all the beneficiaries. Number three, the staff are quitting at historic, wait, scratch that, the worst potential quitting of an agency that I could find in the history of the Social Security Administration's existence. So basically, we're seeing people jump off the SSA ship faster than any other agency ship that I could find in the history of its existence. Now, the staff are dealing with more hostile applicants and recipients than ever before. They're just, people are not happy right now. It's harder to be found disabled. It's harder to keep benefits. There's overpayments at $22 billion due back to the SSA. So things are a little cranky at the moment. Now, there are around 1,000 individuals a month that are quitting the SSA. They are down to around 65,000 employees. They can only hire people to replace a skeleton crew amount of personnel because the post-COVID inflation was so severe that they don't really have enough money as an agency to hire new positions. DDS reps are the first to leave out of all the different groups. A chunk of new hires that will decide if you're disabled are fresh out of college, and the SSA is ranked worst out of all the agencies to work for with the federal government. It takes between 37 to 45 minutes to get someone on the phone. Many people experience a person answering the phone and then hanging up. Some of us believe, we don't really know if this is true, but some of us believe that basically this has something to do with the phone metrics of how many phone calls you can answer in a certain day and keeping your numbers high. That's why they answer. Let it stay on for a little bit, say hello, 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 and then hang up. That way they can go ahead and register as whatever they want to improve their numbers. It takes weeks to get an appointment for a face-to-face at the SSA field offices. The SSA executives are now routinely being brought before Congress to testify about insufficiency and incompetence issues. The acting commissioner has someone already picked to replace, the current acting commissioner already has somebody who's going to be essentially replacing her that Biden has picked at this point. But that acting commissioner has been waiting a while for that new potential commissioner to be okayed by Congress, which is kind of an odd thing. We thought that we would be seeing some sort of Congress-oriented review of Martin O'Malley for the vocational position of being commissioner of the SSA. Please remember, guys, if you enjoy these videos, use the like finger and the subscribe palm. And don't forget to use the tickle the all button option as well. That's very important. Now, there are forecasted program failures in 2024 and beyond. We're going to be going into those right now. Specifically, we're going to be going to the following document. So they made this document called Session 5E, Updates on the Financial Status of Social Security and Proposals. The presenters were Steve Goss, who's the chief executive of all things actuarial at the SSA. He's the chief actuary of the Social Security Administration. That's a more proper way of putting it. And then Karen Glenn, who is the Deputy Chief Actuary of Social Security Administration. So she's the one that's under that person. Moderator is Pjort Kora, Senior Consultant Gabriel Roeder, Smith and Company. Let's get into this thing real quick. so that you understand a little bit about what they're going to be presenting and saying about Social Security benefits going into the 2024 and beyond cycle. Okay, so they'll be going through what's in the trustees report, what things changed, but I just want to hit on a couple things from this real quick, some of the summaries so you understand what they are. All right, based on the recent experience, I'm going to read right from it. Through the third quarter of 2022, the trustees lowered expectations for economic growth in 2023 and assumed a permanent 3% lower level of GDP thereafter. So essentially, the trustees that are the accountants for the SSA when it comes to how much money should be in the trust funds and how well the economy will be doing to put more money into the trust funds. People pay their FICA taxes, that money goes into the trust funds. They're saying that they do not think 2023 and 2024 realistically are going to be good GDP growth years. In fact, one might argue very simply that one of the a bad potential president is one who does not care about the financial standing of the marketplace of essentially our capitalism in America, because as you know, as a country, we are only able to have social security benefits such as retirement, such as disability, such as supplemental security income, such as spousal benefits, ex-spousal benefits, such as disabled little child benefits and other auxiliary benefits, if we have an incredibly strong economy. The moment we don't have a strong economy, we become not a first world country, but a second world country that doesn't have social security benefits. So the most important thing to protect, essentially, in a social security atmosphere, number one, is the economy. If you don't protect the economy, then the Social Security Administration and its beneficiaries fail, and that's the problem. This advanced the OASI, which is basically the Retirement Trust Fund, reserve depletion date 1 year earlier from 2034 to 2033. So what they're saying is that we are now looking at an earlier date, 2033, which will be basically, essentially 9 years down the line from now, as to when the depletion date will be for the retirement funds. As a result of this, you can expect basically to receive a check in about 9 years that will equate to about 80% of the full check that you normally get. And there, some reports show 78, and some reports show 76. But the bottom line is that you should expect, no matter what, at least an 80% less, a 20% less check by 2033. The DI Disability Insurance Trust Fund reserves are not projected to become depleted within the 75-year period. However, some congressional leaders on the Senate side and the House side are talking about taking the Disability Trust Fund and sucking it into the Retirement Trust Fund. That will give the Retirement Trust Fund additional years to go ahead and feed off of the Disability Trust Fund. The only problem is that the Disability Trust Fund is not very big compared to the Retirement Trust Fund, and therefore it will not take very long. We're talking like a very short period of time for the Disability Trust Fund to become completely depleted. So what they're doing is talking about essentially giving the Retirement Trust Fund a couple more years of solvency and then basically bankrupting the disability people. Or essentially they'll keep those two trust funds separate, and then the disabled people will be safe, and the retired people will, of course, run out in potentially 9 years. The reserves of the combined OASDI trust funds are also projected to become depleted 1 year earlier in 2034. So that's if they're combined. The year of combined OASDI reserve depletion has been in the range of 2033 to 2035 for 12 years now. We are approaching the need for action. Put another way, what they're saying is that if we don't act quickly, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And having a fix now is better than a fix later. Okay. Another thing to consider is that after the 1983 amendments, remember when they had the commission, right? The Greenspan Commission. Benny Hill, thank you for the $4.99 donation. I super duper appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. Love Little Fox. It's very cool. Howdy. So basically, after the 1983 amendments that occurred, the 1983 trustees reported that they projected the reserve depletion in 2063. Obviously, 2063 didn't happen. 2033 is going to happen. So what happened there with that whole 30-year whoops? Well, this is why. Okay, this is why they're saying this potentially happened. They're saying that lower birth rates were anticipated in 1983, and mortality projections were extremely accurate. Okay, but remember, lower birth rates were anticipated in 1983, but people have been having lots of births, lots of kids. And so as a result of that, that kind of threw off our retirement/social security system. However, just keep in mind, we need to have more babies that are going to work and pay FICA taxes to keep social security benefits. that's the kicker. We need to have more kids being born that work and pay taxes in order for this thing to work. If it doesn't keep doing that, our ratio, which is like, you know how they have like up in Antarctica, well, basically they have like that giant, ice cube of death like this. Oh my goodness, I'm so afraid of this ice cube melting situation. Well, the numbers that we're looking at, like the 2.7 to 2 ratio of 2.7 people paying into the system for 2 people receiving, that's our giant ice cube of death. If that gets too low, like 2.3, 2.2, 2.2 to 2, stuff, or sorry, 2 to 1 rather. Sorry, it was 2.7 to 1 ratio. If that gets too low, right, 2.7 people paying to 1 person receiving, then what happens is the whole thing collapses. And that's the problem. That's what we should really be afraid of. So over 80% of worsening in projections since the 1983 trustees report was due to unanticipated economic experience. Redistribution of earnings from 1983 to 2000 reduced taxable payroll and payroll tax revenue by 8%. Remember that, redistribution of earnings from 1983 to 2000. And they're expecting, just so you understand what's going to be happening, is that a lot of the assets that people rely on to make money off of that get taxed are going to be sucked up by corporations in the future. So just to give you a quick little summary as to the expectation and the plotting of this forecasted course for Social Security benefits, what's going to happen is that you're going to see all these states becoming wildly more expensive to live in. And that's going to force a lot of retired people that would normally transition their wealth to their kids, the millennials. Well, they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be selling off their big assets. And then the corporations like Zillow and big trust fund groups will be buying up their assets for whatever price they can get them at. And then that transition of wealth to these younger millennials isn't going to happen in the same way, which means that millennials are never really going to have more money to play with to go ahead and make money off of, which means that the plays that they can make won't be there, which means that the FICA taxes that they'll potentially have to go ahead and pay for earned income and stuff like that, they're not going to be there. So there's going to be, unfortunately, a corporation takeover of that distribution of funds that comes from the elderly to the millennials. And then right sitting in between that are going to be all of those property companies that basically buy up properties that will reduce the likelihood of millennials being useful to go ahead and pay enough taxes to keep Social Security benefits going. Dandelions, thank you for the $5 donation. I really, really enjoy that. No worries, Dandelions. No worries. No worries at all. So yeah, and I'm going to try and answer some of the questions from the chat section at the end of this video. So if you post a question there, I am going to scroll back up. Okay. And then after this video, we go ahead and do the video where I take phone calls and I go live, and basically you guys just pummel me with ridiculously tough questions that, either you had an attorney or didn't have an attorney and they couldn't answer it. So I get it. So here we go. Depth of the 2007-2009 recession and slow recovery reduced employment and tax revenue, which is a major thing that hurt the taxable ratio for Social Security benefits. Next thing I want to go through, is it over here? Let me see real quick. Hold on. No, I think it's the next one. Hold on. It's right. Yeah, it's right over here. Hold on. Okay, cool. Here it is. Next thing, by 2034, we need to reduce the scheduled benefits by 1/4 or increase revenue by 1/3. So what they're saying is they've got a huge financial problem when it comes to these Social Security benefits. They need to literally reduce essentially what they're paying out to the American people by 1/4, or they need to find a way to increase the amount of taxes that are being paid in, or the amount of people that are paying in taxes. So that's kind of what they're working on right now. So lowered scheduled benefits, that means increasing the NRA, reduce retirees but not disabled, consider less increase for long career, low pay earners, as Simpson-Bowell's 2010 option had. They can reduce the COLA, cost of living adjustment, which mostly affects the oldest individuals. But remember, you're already getting screwed over by the cost of living adjustment because they changed the math on how it works, and you should be getting around $500 per month more based on how they changed it. SLB veteran, $5 donation. Thank you. I really appreciate it. The SSA will go downhill by 2034. Hopefully I'll be with my maker by then. I hope my money helps you. I really appreciate it. I really do, because it is so expensive to represent people doing disability law. And the crazy thing about it is that because there's a significant reduction in the amount of approvals that they're doing at the SSA at this point, the problem is that we are having to take on less and less and less risky claims, because a lot of the people we would normally help out, work the claim, yada, yada, it won't go through. They won't approve it. They just won't approve the claim. And then we'll lose a couple grand per claim that we don't win that has the potential of $7,200 for the payout. So we have been having to restructure how we take on clients in a massive way. And it's scary. The culture of this entire agency and being approvals for disability benefits are massively changing. And it's affecting the public too, because you no longer hear, I mean, maybe you hear one in echoes somewhere, but you no longer hear those like snarky, egotistical people that are like, I got on disability benefits and all I had to do was pick my nose, right? You don't see those people anymore. Like they don't exist. And the reason why is because they're getting an overpayment call where they're like, we don't think you're disabled anymore and you owe us, $40,000, yada, yada. So I just had to pick my nose and I got disability benefits people. They're just not there anymore. So okay, so let's keep rolling through this thing real quick. All right, next thing. When they say increase scheduled revenue, what they're saying is increase payroll taxes by raising the 12.4 tax rate or taxing some or all of earnings above the current taxable maximum. They're just trying to basically make my generation pay more money. The reality is my generation is basically, it's just floundering. We don't have enough money to pay off our student loans, and we don't have enough money for the most part to get houses as a generation. So kind of the bottom line is that you can tax us more, but you're going to be shit out of luck because we just won't be able to pay it. So next one, take advantage of returns on private sector investments, which is what everybody's talking about, except Democrats won't allow it. Republicans are pushing it. Invest trust fund revenues or tax investment income as in the 2010 ACA. So basically, the whole idea is to go ahead and do what the Wall Streeters do and make massive revenue instead of using these trust fund bonds, which are just these special bonds that we put our SSA funds into, the FICA taxes. They're not working. They're not enough coming back at us. Okay, so the question that really comes up in this situation going into 2024 for the Social Security Administration and beyond, and this is, I think they really hit this question right on the head. Question, how much should Social Security provide? What share of pre-retirement earnings to replace? So what they're really coming down to asking is, what is the purpose of Social Security benefits going into the future? Because the current purpose is that it's not really paying enough to keep people living in this idea of like heaven equals retirement. Like, you've worked really hard, now you've reached the end of your life, and now you get 10, 15 years to just have some retirement money and enjoy your life. And so the idea behind this structured system is that this retirement benefit is supposed to give you enough to be able to go and have fun, live your life, enjoy things. But the reality is nobody does unless they're a VA and SSA person, because then they get two checks and they get enough money to actually live their life. That's the reality. That's the scary thing about it. All the other people, all the civilian only people, they don't get enough. So as a result of that, what's now come down is that people receiving Social Security benefits, they don't really look to it as like their source of retirement. It's more of like, it pays a part of their, rent or their mortgage or their electric or their this or their that. And so a lot of people who essentially have homes, the homes now have skyrocketing, taxes, skyrocketing insurance. And so they're left in the situation of like, well, there's no new money coming. So how am I going to actually pay for these things? And so a lot of them are going to begin the process of downsizing in an immense way. So what's really happening here is that we're going to see those people who can hold on to their assets and those people who hold on to houses and things like that and rent them out, they'll be able to go ahead and make income off of that asset. But those people who are just like, I have to sell it to be able to afford something like rent, those are the people who are going to lose out the most. And the future generations of their children are also going to lose out significantly. And here's why. A lot of people don't realize, but these super wealthy people that you see, that have like family names going back, they're not rich because they're brilliant. They're rich because they just set up some basic principles to go ahead and let their investments build so that they create generational wealth. And then they would have their wealth skip a generation when it would basically, go to the next group so that they wouldn't pay as much taxes. So each generation would skip one so that they would go ahead and not have to pay taxes per person. So they keep the majority of money, as much money as they could, when that tax transfer would occur. So here's kind of the bottom line with what's going on. At this point, you are going to see a greater separation between essentially those with money and those without money. And those with money, they are the closest thing to true freedom that somebody has, right? More acres of land, more time to sit in a hot tub, etc. And then you have the impoverished ones who basically sit in front of a TV and can't actually go anywhere. And the way they experience places is through watching a show on it on TV. But then, of course, they're sitting there wondering about their power bill and why it's so high. That's what's happening. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of this. I want to take a moment to go through the next thing, which I think is super duper important. And I just want to point out one thing. I'm going to be very quick with it, and I think it's incredibly important for you to realize this. Dandelions, thank you for the $2 donation. Is my apple tree considered an asset? Absolutely, absolutely. I used to have an apple tree, and it got run over by somebody, and I was like, "What the hell?" But absolutely, thank you for the $2 donation. Now, here's another thing that I do not know what's going to happen with the effect of it, but it is going to be an effect and it is going to be a problem. We do not know how many immigrants and asylum seekers and refugee seekers will be going onto SSI in the future. We know that 2024 is going to have a significant chunk going onto SSI as a result of the immigration standards that are being used by the Biden administration. We do not know how many more billions the taxpayer will be required to deal with as a result of the 7-year plus 2-year additional provisions for them getting onto SSI. So when people come here, a lot of people are like, well, how do you survive? Well, some immigrants, they go ahead and get a job and they work it. And some immigrants, based on their status, asylum seeker, refugee, etc., they're able to go on to like a 7-year and 2-up program, like 2-year extra program, which allows them to go ahead and exist here. The problem with this situation is that it's going to cost billions to the American taxpayers. And more of those SSI slots, like, people taking SSI that would normally go on disability, a lot of those would be filled by these immigrants that are coming into the country. And so the problem with this, like, no wall situation or reduced wall situation or weird, like, we shouldn't have a wall situation, is that we're going to have an increase in unfortunate losses of life. We're going to have an increase in basically reduction of available benefits for SSI people. We're going to have an increase of hostility in the country from extremists, and we're going to have an increase in essentially basically poverty-based programs having to support these individuals. So, for example, like, providing clothing, providing food, providing showers, etc. Okay. Now, I want to go to basically the main issue when it comes to what has happened with Social Security benefits throughout the years, especially when it comes to essentially the ALJ, Administrative Law Judge, decisions when it comes to disability benefits. I'm going to read to you a chart, Table 63 from the Social Security Administration's website that does a medical decision at the hearing level or above analysis. And it's by year of application and program. But bottom line is, these are essentially disabled beneficiaries who are found disabled via administrative law judges. So you get initial denial, appeal, reconsideration, appeal, ALJ hearing judges, these guys right here. So the one thing that you have to keep in mind with this is that if you're wondering why it's so much harder to be found disabled, there's a lot of reasons, and I'll do a whole video on that. But the main outcome of that would be the percentages of approval, being how many people were essentially approved out of those who got up to the administrative law judge. In 1999, the percentage of people who were approved in front of the administrative law judges across the country were 65.7%. 2000, 65.9%. 2001, 65.5%. 2002, 64.8%. 2003, 64.5%. 2004, 65%. 2005, 66.6%. 2006, 65%. So what we're seeing is everything between 64 and 66. That's what we're seeing up to this point. Now we're going to see basically the shift. 2007, 63.8%. 2008, 61.1%. 2009, 56.3%. So in other words, when we saw this whole thing occur, right, where we had this collapse of the economy in 2008, 2009, the result was that in 2009, between 2007 and basically 2009, is that a total of 7 percentage points went away from how many people were approved. So what the government did was they made it so that about 7% of those being found disabled wouldn't be found disabled going into the next year. Okay. Now we go to 2010. Now we're down to 51.3%. 2011, 47.2%. 2012, 43.5%. 2013, 41.7%. Now, remember, if you just go back basically from 2013 all the way back to 2003 had 64.5% passage rate, whereas 2013 had 41.7% passage rate. So there was a 23% passage rate drop in how many people were being found disabled from 2003 to 2013 alone. Now, we study as attorneys essentially the legal cases of what happened to Binder and Binder during that period because, Binder basically went bankrupt and they got in trouble for some things. But the bottom line is that they are what we study as to the great collapse of the Social Security's golden era, right? Cool. 2014, 41.5%, 2015, 41.3%. 2016, 41%, 2017, 41.7%, 2018, 44.7%, 2019, 44.1%. And it stayed around 44% over the past couple of years. However, due to the economic collapse, I'm expecting, and they haven't really done the math on this yet, that we're going to be seeing essentially these benefits drop about another 10% of likelihood of being approved, which will put us down to around 34% approval rate in the next 2 to 3 years, which is essentially going to decrease the likelihood of those who are able to get onto disability benefits, which shows you, and this is a clear example of it, that mathematically the government is manipulating how many people can be found disabled. And they're manipulating it by changing the judges and how they're trained and their decisions. Mathematically, we can now see when there's a financial crisis, all of a sudden the amount of people that can be found disabled significantly drops. Okay. And, it should be pointed out with the irony of it is that during the Trump era, approvals for disability benefits went up, which I didn't know. I didn't know that until I found this chart on it. I would have thought they would have gone down with him. They actually went up by around 3%. But during the Obama era, they were extremely low, which I would have never thought. I would have thought Obama would have been like the champion of percentages of approval for disability benefits. I just didn't have this chart before. So that kind of tells you essentially what's going on. Not that I'm making the argument for Trump here. I just that fact surprised me. Like that fact was on the list of facts where I was like, what the hell? Like the fact that, the person who passed SSI benefits was Nixon, like that just surprises the hell out of me, but because that's like the most liberal program ever passed in America ever. And he's considered to be like the anti-liberal president, but Nixon was actually the most liberal president we've ever had. He passed the most liberal thing ever in the existence of America. So bottom line is that just surprised the hell out of me. And the ironic thing is that under the Biden administration, these percentages have kind of stayed right around or slightly below where Trump's percentages were. But I can guarantee you in the next presidential setup, they will go down, especially, realistically looking at what they've done in the history. So that's something to be aware of. So, those people that are out there are like, I got my benefits by just picking my nose. Those people, like we have seen that they've been culled from the disability process and they've gotten their overpayment letters and they've gone through hell. And now they're trying to like hold on to their benefits and they're realizing that like winking at the SSA building as they drive by doesn't work anymore. Okay, so now please remember to like and subscribe to these videos if they help you understand where things are going based off of essentially the math provided from these different groups. Now, I want to point out one thing that I think is very, very important here. A lot of you have questioned why I like Commissioner Kijikazi if so many things are going on that seem very negative towards the Social Security Administration that she's currently running as the acting commissioner. Here's the thing. All of these things that we originally read, like all these things, staff has low morale, staff has maximum caseload capacity, staff are quitting at historic levels, staff are dealing with more hostile applicants, around 1,000 a month of these staff quit. They're down to around 65,000 employees. They can only hire people to replace the skeleton crew. They're, 25 years ago, that's how many employees they have just as now. DDS reps are the first to leave. A chunk of new hires are basically, just out of college. SSA is ranked worst out of all the agencies to work for. It takes between 37 to 45 minutes to get somebody on the phone with the SSA field offices. Many people experience a person answering the phone and then hanging up on them. It takes weeks to get an appointment with the SSA. The SSA executives are in front of Congress due to insufficient incompetence. The acting commissioner is someone already picked, but yet we're just not seeing Martin O'Malley actually being reviewed by Congress to be put in place. The reason I still support what Commissioner Kijikazi is still doing is because she doesn't have enough money. And Commissioner Saul didn't exactly set her up with a great agency to roll with. So how do I put this? Okay, so imagine if you're like at a pool table, right? You've got all the different colored balls on the pool table, and then that person who's playing pool sets up the pool table in a not so successful manner, right? Which is what Commissioner Saul did. He ran it like a for-profit corporation. He didn't care what he didn't care much about what the unions were saying, and he created this hostility between the employees and the unions. And basically, he set Commissioner Kijikazi up with shots on the pool table that just were terrible shots. Like there were no good ways to go with it. Then you have a failing economy due to very poor decisions on behalf of our current administration. And then you have basically not enough money provided by Congress. And then you basically have massive inflation, which causes any money that you have to be decreased immensely. And remember, we're not going by the BS COLA, inflation numbers of 8.7, 5.9, 3.2. That's all BS. That's a lie. The way they calculate that, it's a lie. We're going by the reality of things cost 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 to 35% more. And so the bottom line is we all go to Walmart or Publix or ShopRite or whatever now, and we're just like, what the hell? You used to be able to walk out of that store $20 and be like, I did amazing things. It used to be like when you would come out of Walmart like 25 years ago, you used to be like, well, even if my cart, flips over and half of it falls out, I'll just go back tomorrow. It's not a big deal. So nowadays you're like cherishing, like, these are my Doritos and these are my chips and these right here are my eggs, my beautiful eggs, and it's not good. And this is unfortunately, I think Commissioner Kijikazi would have been able to do a lot more with having a full staff, but she's not done terribly with essentially a skeleton staff situation that was set up poorly to begin with when she inherited the program to try and do something with it. So it's not as simple as just saying this person sucks, that person sucks too. You have to look at what they inherited from the prior, commissioner, how it, basically traveled down the river, and what you ended up with as basically a very, very, very stormy water that is not easy to fix. So that is the main issue. Also, some of the things she had to face were like very difficult for the SSA to fix because they're not. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, the SSA had to fix a situation where they sent out stimulus money, right? They sent out stimulus money, and SSI people, they can't have more than $2,000 in the bank. Well, obviously, when they got their stimulus cash, they had more than $2,000 in the bank. And so the problem is they were sending out these overpayment letters because they were over their resource limit. Cool, makes sense, simple to understand. They were over $2,000 because they got these extra stimulus checks. They didn't spend it fast enough, and then they got these checks. So then, as they held on to that money, if they continued to, the SSA had to find a way to put an algorithm in place that would read what the person had in their bank account, and then, as the money was commingled with other funds, and still separate that amount from how much they were supposed to have that was allowable versus essentially what they, would have normally not had as a result of these stimulus payments. And that's tricky. They had to code that for essentially all these different bank accounts. So it wasn't an easy fixed problem. It was a very complicated situation. So, anyways, let's see what we got here. Are there any questions that you guys have for me before, in written that I can do real quick written answers before I go to the video where I basically get on the phone and answer questions? Any quick questions that we have here? Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. I'm not seeing questions at the end here. I'm going to scroll up a little. Let me see what we got. I see one person said those numbers are bananas. I'm 2011 Obama era. Yeah, they're straight from the Social Security Administration's website. Let's see. I'm not seeing questions here. All right, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom again. Any questions at all? Will the SSA hire people on disability benefits? Yes, absolutely. In fact, the Social Security Administration, like all federal agencies, there's a special rule where people who are disabled or military or just to put it as it is, not white, will basically get preference for being hired. And so the bottom line is that if you're a disabled, a veteran, or a minority, then you basically get point preferences for being hired. The kicker, though, I just want to point this out, when it comes to like being hired as a disabled person, is that you do get a bit more leeway. You get more accommodations and stuff like that. But keep in mind, you can still be terminated by, for not keeping up with the numbers that you need to produce and complete, etc. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. So Let's see what we've got going on here. Let's see. With all the headaches, is filing even worth it? Yeah, of course. You get your check every month. You get your health insurance, basically for the rest of your life or until you retire. Yeah, it's absolutely worth it. Question, Walter. I hear SSA will be using AI. Do you think that will make it better? They're already using AI. They're already using programs that go through basically your bank accounts. They're already using programs that go through your medical documentation. They're already using AI. Will it improve it? It'll make reports more quickly available to essentially the DDS groups and the ALJs and the appeals council groups, the AAJs. So will it make it better? It'll make it probably a little bit faster because the information that they're looking for will be auto queued into a list of bullet points that they'll be able to access and research from. But the days at that point of somebody like really going through the record, that will end, which maybe isn't a bad thing because one of the big slowdowns is having to go through all these pages and pages and pages of medical records to like find out what the person has going on with them. Okay. So next question. Is there an asset limit if you are concurrent? Yeah. So if you concurrent allowance for the SSI portion of your benefits, so let's say that you get $600 of SSDI and $400 of SSI, the $400 of SSI will still have the resource limit of $2,000 applied to them, or $3,000 if it's a couple thing. All right, let's go to the next thing real quick. A cult leader said, is a depression coming, with little question marks that go both ways. So what I would say is this: it's absolute certainty, because depression, the recessions are more like bad things happening in the country, and then they just call it that, and then they just redefine what a recession is. Pretty crappy stuff that we've seen during the past couple of years when it comes to how they frame economic problems. But when our currency, based on other countries trading and using our currency, when our currency isn't with preference, which is what's going on right now, that will create a very, very strong depression, unfortunately. So that's a very scary thing. But yes, a depression is almost certain to come. I don't know if China will take Taiwan in 2024. But if they do, it depends on who's going to become president in 2025 as to how that whole thing will be handled, which I can't give you any updates on. I'm just not into that stuff. Let's see. Walter, I got fired from my job as a dishwasher. I told SSA and they asked if they could call my boss. Yeah, they do that because they want to make sure that you didn't quit versus get fired versus if you're on a ticket to work program, things like that. SLB veteran said AI is a mess with the VA claim processing. It's not great. I don't know if I'd call it a mess, but it's not great. Let's see. Branyan, my question was, do I need to acquire SSDI paperwork, or will your firm do that, and will you help me fill it out? So here's my thing with paperwork and people. You get two types of claimants. Well, no, you get three types of claimants. Claimant number one is super self-sufficient. You send them the forms, they send them back. They did a great job filling them out. Claimant number two, you send them the forms, they send them back. They did a mediocre kind of filling of it out. And, they missed a signature there and they didn't really fill this stuff out. And so you have to spend per form about 5 to 15 minutes to clean it up, making sure it's correct, and then basically scan it in, get it done, blah, blah, blah. And then you have people who don't give a flying F about any of the forms. They're just like, you're the firm, I hired you, you deal with it, you fill it out. We fire those claimants. We do not keep them, we fire them. When somebody tells me that I have to sign something that only they're allowed to sign, or they're not willing to fill out a document or a form, I fire them, because this is not a situation. And I know it feels that way with some of those big box firms because they just don't do stuff. They don't do stuff like when you're supposed to sign this motion or agree to this AOD or be part of this brief or run this thing or do these HA forms or do this 827, whatever. They just don't do a lot of stuff. So people are like, yeah, I'm just on the flyby. Everything seems like it's being done because nobody's asked me any questions and nobody's really asked me to do anything. The reality is, if you're not talking with your law firm and you're not signing stuff or looking at stuff or working on stuff, then you are on what's called autopilot and your success rate dives. It absolutely dives. So do I help people fill out the forms? Yeah, sure. Do I help people who don't really fill out anything on them, don't sign most of them, and then just send it to me super blank? I kind of do, but I do that only through basically the homeless facility that I go to. So here's my rule. Here's how I dealt with that situation. When I go to the Samaritan Resource Center, I get a lot of homeless claimants. They line them up for me to work with them. Most of them, are not able to fill out forms. Reading is difficult. Writing is difficult. Even using pens can be difficult. Okay. So in that instance, yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm helping them fill it out, I'm going through the stuff with them, I'm going through the paperwork, yada, yada. But most of the claimants that I interact with through the phone, they're able to do those basic functions. And then I just tell them what the statute's looking for, how their impairments look on their medical documentation, and phrases they should consider. So it's a different, paradigm. So, and there's been so many questions since then. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, question. My husband, and sorry if I missed your question, I'm just trying to read them real quick. Question. My husband passed away Feb, and I still haven't received my spousal benefits. I was told there's nobody on my case, and they don't know when there will be. What can I do? Reach out to the regional field office. That's the best thing you can do. Fastest, best thing you can do, regional field office. Alicia Walter, how do I organize to prepare for a future reevaluation? I'm on Social Security disability to age 63. That honestly, okay, so that's a good question. And that question I've answered like 3 or 4 times this week because people have hired me to do that $250 per hour thing where they buy an hour of my time. And the way that works, guys, just so you know, is that, somebody will say like, hey, I want you to figure out my overpayment situation, or I want you to figure out what I should put on my, my CDR form, or I want to know what I should do to go ahead and make sure I am less likely to get a review and an overpayment as a result of it. So what they do is I send them the mini contract, they PayPal the funds, I put them on my docket calendar, and then I give it an hour. And then I review their case files. They'll send me like what their decision letter was, what their recent medical documentation was. I go through it really quickly, and then I advise them the things they should do to improve the likelihood that they won't get reviewed in the future. Okay. So it's too big of a question to do in like this. Okay, so next one, I get SSDI, which I barely make ends meet by cutting them out. Many will suffer financially. I live check to check. SSDI, I've been working since I was 13 years old and became disabled in 2018. That was more of a statement than a question. Question, I was always confused if the extra payments affected my SSDI that rolled over into straight Social Security. I'm not sure which extra payments you got. So it could have been a situation where you're talking about stimulus payments. Could have been a situation where you're talking about you received one at the beginning of the month and one at the end of the month, but then didn't get one for the next month. So need clarification on that. Let's see what we got here. Are CDRs still being done? Yeah, record amounts. Absolutely. CDRs are definitely being done at record amounts. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Is it possible those on disability and working are jeopardizing their benefits? Well, yeah, because every time it's like with education stuff. If you complete a degree, right, you automatically get a CDR. If you increase your job, right, and then all of a sudden you're not on a ticket to work program and you got a bonus, and now all of a sudden you're above SGA for that month, yeah, of course, you've just put your benefits on the line because you violated element 1 of the 5-step sequential process. So yeah, absolutely. I'm just worried my old boss will say bad things about me to the SSA if they call. That is a problem. People, those CDI units, they get a lot of heads up from people you never think they would talk to. So that is a concern. Walter, what's the 3 things you enjoy doing on free time? Spending time with my dogs, watching movies / walking them. Basically, I would love to get back to being on a boat. I haven't been on a boat in years because I've been working on getting my house fixed up enough to be livable, working on the horse farm, which was miserable work. I mean, just miserable work. Then I took on this project of the house next doors because that's going to be my actual future retirement. And then after that's complete, I'm going to work on a little bit of my house, work on a little bit of the New Jersey house that my parents own that's on the horse farm. But for the most part, I'm going to be spending time getting back onto the water. And then the other thing I really enjoy, honestly, food. I've noticed that I, as a psychological thing, will go ahead and eat food as like a congratulations to me achieving things. And I'd like train myself to do that. I'd be like, oh, I just finished a hearing. I will go eat. Oh, I just finished a really difficult whatever. I'll go eat. And so I think that I use food in a very negative way, which is to like congratulate myself for achieving things, which is why I'm chubby. I actually process food at a very, very fast rate, but I also eat like twice as much as the average person that's my weight. A lot of people think like you wouldn't think that I weigh 200 to 210 pounds. A lot of that is just Scottish heritage, because my wrists are rather large for, the rest of my body, which is just big bone structure. That's just how it is. But you don't usually see this type of bone structure on a Jewish person, which is just, you just don't see this. Like when people see me, they're like, you look a little Ukraine, Austrian, mixed with something else, which is the Scottish. But that's, I've obviously from my mom's side, the Jewish influence. But a lot of people look at me and they're like, how is somebody that's 5'9", 200 to 210 pounds that doesn't look overweight? That's just because I eat a lot and I'm also a heavy bone person. It's just I have big bones. So, which is why I was so effective when it came to Taekwondo and so effective when it came to lacrosse, because I would just run into people at high speed and be like, whatever, I'm fine. So, what's happening with your music? So here's the deal with the music. The Whisper Room is over there, and the Whisper Room is basically all right. We're putting all the bass traps together, which I don't think I have one up here. Anyways, we're putting all the bass traps together and gluing them because when I tried to put them up, they all didn't line up right. So we glued them all together so they look right. Then we're going to put those up. We just got the spray sticky, which allows us to spray the back of the square foam panels and put those in. We have a plan now for the lighting system that's going to go in the Whisper Room. So we're going to have like a little, on-off button on the outside of it. So we'll have proper lighting in there. Just so you know, I was able to collect the Bronner Valvet Plus microphone. I do have a video where I'm going to at some point record it, or it's just me playing the guitar for the first time in 15 years. It will suck. You should watch it or not. I'm just giving you a heads up warning. Anyways, so what about days you don't congrats yourself? Yeah, when I don't. So dandelions, that's a really good question. I deal with depression just like everybody else. I have to deal with extreme anxiety. I have people in life or death situations all the time talking to me about, are they going to win their benefits? Are they not going to win their benefits? So I don't deal with a healthy amount of stress on a daily basis. I deal with I deal with like surgeon level stress where I'm like, okay, look, this person's either they're going to fail in life and have a miserable time, or I'm going to either make this happen. And this is their one shot. And if they don't make this happen, then it's all going to go to shit and they're going to hate their life and it's all going to be terrible. So I deal with an unnatural amount of stress on a daily basis. And as a result of that, I unfortunately use caffeine to go ahead and balance out having enough energy to also wake up and continue to do that. Because, a lot of people, like when I was on Facebook doing that Facebook video, somebody sent me a thing from Facebook. They're like, who do you think you are making videos about this? You're just some guy in a building with a backdrop. Like, who do you think you are? And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, okay, this is weird because as the most viewed and subscribed to disability attorney in America, like this person does not get that I live in the box of Social Security. Like that's the home I live in. So anyways, last question real quick. Walter, would you be open to traveling to the Philippines? They would love you there. So here's the thing. I have a lust for the Philippines as a nation. The photos I see of it, if you guys ever take a moment and just look at the Philippines when it comes to like drone footage that they have on YouTube, it's absolutely incredible. It is gorgeous. If you look at essentially the islands, if you look at essentially like the amazing, happy cultures that are there, how many people are there like on vacation, you don't see sad people in the Philippines. You just don't see them. Now, with that said, I have my house on the closest thing that I could essentially afford to what the Philippines are, which is I live in Florida and I live on a big island. Like it's not like a cool little island. There's a Walmart on it, a Home Depot on it. It's a big island. But the point is, I got myself as close to that as I could. That to me would essentially be like the thing that, there's other issues too, not having a significant other in any ways adds to stress, but also detracts from stress. Some of the married people on here might say, that other person causes me stress, right? But you can tell, and the lights are super bright. But if I get really up close, you can tell, like, my eyes are, owning a law firm, running a law firm, being an attorney that does hearings all the time, having a YouTube channel, being a big YouTuber, doing all these videos all the time, restoring a house, having to redo all this stuff. Like, just so the new roof that got put on it, that was like last week. Today, we had 3 stumps that were right by the entranceway that had to be, chopped up. So then it hit one of the water lines. So that was today. Like if you didn't have me calling you back from like 2 to like 4 p.m., that's because I was dealing with that. And then I came back and kept working on things. There's a brief that I have to get done tomorrow, no matter what. There's another brief that I have to do on Sunday, no matter what. It's just a lot. It's a lot. So And then the pay is shit. The pay is shit. Like, when people are like, "Oh, you must be doing great." No, the pay is shit. Like that's the worst part of this field, is that there's not enough, like they just don't pay disability attorneys well. And even when you win claims, if you had like a lot of SSI claimants, which is what I had, you're making like $3,000 out of 3 to 4 years representing this person. So the pay is just, it's shit. And it's also tough because the main thing that I worry about is that I go and work with all these homeless individuals, and some of them have bad days. I'm not worried about one of them, unfortunately, pulling out a firearm and shooting me. I'm worried about them pulling out a firearm to shoot somebody else, and then that damn thing hitting me. Because, I'm in the right place at the right time for that stuff to happen. So, but anyways, I will catch you a little bit later. I will catch you in the next video, which is where we go live. You guys know how it works. I will put the phone up in the little mount thingy. Remember to use a fake name throughout the process. When you call in 407-279-1754. Every Thursday we do it on YouTube. Every Tuesday we do it on Facebook. Remember to keep your question to the legal question right up front. No story mode. You get 5 to 7 minutes, and then we should be good from there. Remember to use the like finger. We've only got 160 likes. That's pretty good, actually. So if you don't want to use your like finger, that's fine. But please use the like finger, wiggle it right, and then go ahead and use the subscribe palm. Go ahead and use the special all button with that finger, and then go ahead and I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the phone's already ringing. And then go ahead and basically, if you like, and it's up to you, I love waking up to those 5 stars. So if you want to leave one, you can, you don't have to. But basically, you go to Google, you type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. And then remember, if you want a disability attorney, you know who to call. I will catch you guys in the next video in about, give me 10 minutes. I want to make sure the piggies who are sleeping over on the green screen basically have enough time to go out and do their thing. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm going to try and spin this thing real quick so you can kind of look over there. I don't have anything on that. Okay, yeah, we're fine. So if you look over there, right over there they are. You see them? They're snug right over there. They're adorable. They're adorable. Right? And then that's like my pride and joy right there of musical stuff. All my little preamps. All right. So with that said, I'm not even going to be able to put this back right. There you go. With that said, I will catch you guys a little bit later. And I hope this information helped you. I hope these statistics that are provided are good from the Social Security Administration for you to assimilate into your knowledge base. And we will go from there. I will see you in 10, maybe 15 minutes to give me a little bit of a break because my voice is going out. I will see you soon. Be safe. Use the like finger. Like. All right. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.